This episode is brought to you by Monogram. Welcome to the Design Dash podcast, your guide to designing a life you love. Join us as we explore the keys to living the life you want without compromise.
Hi there. Welcome to Design Dash podcast. I'm Laura Umansky, your co-host, and I'm here with Melissa Grove. Hi, Melissa.
Hey, Laura.
Hi. Okay, so today we're going to talk about having candid conversations. And this is something that I've had to learn to do over my career, and especially as a business owner, because I am an eternal optimist. I'm extremely optimistic, and I want to spin pretty much any situation to the positive. That's my go-to. But that doesn't always benefit who you're speaking with, and it doesn't benefit a situation if you're overly positive and you're not acknowledging that there are issues. So Melissa takes a very different tack, and I'd like to hear from you. How do you feel about candid conversations?
Maybe I'm just the more cynical of the two of us. So I'm totally fine with it. I'd like to say, I'm really good with conflict and I'm good with those candid conversations, but they're always still very difficult. I think that just for me, I learned through it by having maybe some experiences in my past where people weren't as honest in order to be kind, right? And in order to maybe spare feelings. And then in the end, I was left feeling like, oh, so I thought that I was doing fine this whole entire time, but I wasn't. And I just felt that when I got into a leadership position, I didn't want to be that person who didn't give feedback directly or didn't give feedback that was constructive, and sometimes that is negative. But I found that for me personally, that's the kind of feedback that helped me grow. And so I think as long as, and when I have a difficult conversation with somebody at work, I always like to say, I'm having this discussion with you with positive intent. I'm doing this because I want things to improve. We have the same goals. I think that maybe we're just off base. So let's get on the same page. All of that jargon and whatever to maybe soften the blow a little bit, but try and be really direct about it. I think where I can struggle is sometimes I'll challenge too much because I can be really stubborn. And so I'll say this is my opinion and I know that it's the right one, trying to convert somebody to my side. And of course that doesn't always work.
See, I think I like that too. I'm stubborn and I'm I want to convert someone to my side. I think I'm willing to listen to other opinions, even if I think I'm right.
Yeah.
But I do it through being overly optimistic. I'm here's my opinion. This is why it works and why it's the best. But you said something that is interesting to me. So you said the word honest, and it sounds like that's if you get nothing but positive feedback or feedback that maybe takes too much of a positive spin because that person's trying to be kind, then you see that as dishonest.
Yeah, I see it as okay, so I see it's almost like it's hiding something. There's no, I could be great, that's fine. But I know that there's always a little bit of improvement, or there's always something else that I could have done differently. All of us are unique people, right? So I think all of our approaches are going to be different. I'd love to hear from somebody else, if they did have a different approach, I'd love to hear that because then I'm learning. Right. Yeah. If it's always positive, it's just everything you did was great. Well, then I'm not being challenged. I'm not learning and I'm not changing my approach. So I feel as long as it's honest and done in a great way, it can be way more impactful, I think, than just positivity.
Yeah. And I think I have a couple comments on that, but I think within our design firm, within Laura U Design Collective, we put a structure in place that the structure works for me as a person that doesn't like to give negative feedback. I feel guilty. I feel if it's big things, yes, I can give feedback on that because I'm this is this is what we do as a firm. This is why you need to do it. But if someone's doing really freaking well and it's just a couple things here and there, then I feel I'm just being nitpicky.
Yeah, you don't want to hurt anybody's spirit. Right.
Yeah. But a lot of times that's what it is. It's you're doing awesome. I really feel you are doing really, really well. But if I have to dig in and come up with something negative or not negative, but if I have to dig in and come up with somewhere where you are falling short, then it's going to be nitpicky. So when do you not do that?
Yeah, that's tricky. I mean, sometimes I will just have like a full on positive conversation. Like I've had quarterly convos, and this is our review process at Laura U, but I've had quarterly convos that are just overly positive because that quarter, like, man, they were doing a really good job. But I also know that throughout that time, there has been some real time feedback that was more constructive.
Yeah,
Like
that's
and I'm sure I mean, obviously in design, like you have to give each other constructive feedback all the time.
Yes. Yeah. I think with design, I'm comfortable with that constructive feedback along the way, because that's just part of it. I mean, and
Yeah.
anyone on the design team has learned to take constructive criticism from, freshman year in college. As you're getting that degree, your professors are tearing you apart, and they're preparing you for getting that little feedback as you go into your professional career. But like, I guess where I feel even a little more nervous is giving constructive criticism or feedback where I feel like maybe I shouldn't step in, like marketing, for example. Like I just went and snipped something from social media where I was like, hey, this is not contrasty enough. I'm having a hard time reading the text. And I didn't say that. I was just like, hey, could we do a little bit darker background?
Yeah.
And that's where I start being maybe a little like walking on eggshells because I'm afraid to upset someone. Like obviously thought went into that. It was there for a reason. And it's like that for a reason.
Yeah, no, but you were totally right. So
Okay.
I think it was very
am I
valid.
being too nice? Is that candid?
I mean, I think it was here's the thing. I probably would have done it differently. I probably would have said
me, how
like,
would you have
very
done it?
directly, like, I don't think there's enough contrast here. It's very difficult to see the text. Maybe darken the text or either darken the background, maybe play around with a couple of different things. Let's see what looks best. But I would say directly, like, I can't read this.
Okay, see, I'm so much nicer. I'm like, you may want to think about blah, blah, blah. Damn it. So is that being dishonest?
No, because I think it's still, you're really good at softening the blow. But for me, like, I think because that's so different from the way that I would approach it, I'm just like, what is she hiding? Like, what is she really saying? What is she
Nothing.
really saying?
Really, it's just I can't freaking read it, but I'm trying to be kind because you put a lot of work into this.
We'd like to thank our good friends at Monogram Appliances. We've partnered with Monogram for over a decade with our design firm, Laura U Design Collective, and we're so happy to partner with them in producing the Design Dash podcast. Monogram sources the highest quality materials for their appliances, from commercial grade stainless steel to unscratchable sapphire glass. Monogram ensures lasting beauty and unmatchable quality for your luxury kitchen. And not only that, but they have an amazing team who we love working with, and we know you will too. So thanks, Monogram.
Yeah, I can see that. I'm not as direct. You are very direct. So I've had to learn to be direct. And so, like I said earlier, we've put some things in place in Laura U Design Collective that allows me to be more direct because we have structure. So for example, we do a success plan with our team, and we start the success plan when they are brand new. So after 30 days, they've been with us. It is really hard to fill out a feedback form for someone you haven't worked with for very long. However, I have learned, because of Melissa being direct, that it is really helpful. And it's not just helping me, it is helping them, and it's helping the firm. And so it's structured in a way where I can give direct feedback because it's asking me to do that. Like, hey, here are 3 things you can work on. Be descriptive, because not being descriptive isn't helpful. Yeah. Here are things that you do really well, and here's why, and here are some exact examples of that. I think that structure has really helped me.
That's good. I'm glad to hear that. Yeah, I mean, for me, being so direct, like I have to work within that structure. Like I'm so terrible at the sandwich.
Did it help you soften? Do you want to soften?
I mean, it's so hard because sometimes I don't, right? Like, I mean, it really depends. But again, that's because I don't need it. And so I think that's something that I have to learn, that I have to work on, is that some people do need the sandwich, right? They need the positive. Like, you're doing this great, 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 great. But now you need a little bit of help on this, and then end with something great. Like, I don't need that. I would rather you just spit in my face and tell me what I'm doing wrong so I can go fix it.
No, I need
And
the
I know
sandwich.
that that's not how everybody else is. So I've had to really pull back on doing that, because that's the feedback that I would want to receive. And I know that that's not how everybody else would want it. So,
Interesting. See, for me,
that's how we
I would
structured
feel
that.
so attacked.
Yeah, no, I don't know. Maybe I've just had, I don't know. I don't know. Maybe it's just the experiences that I've had. I've always felt like the bosses or the supervisors or the managers that I had that gave me that direct feedback, at least I knew where I stood. And I think that in the past, I've just had some experiences with people where it was also positive, and then they let me go.
And then you're
Or,
blindsided.
right. And then I was just
Yeah.
I was completely surprised. Like, well, all my reviews were really positive. Like, we've always been really great. And then I hear after leaving from other team members that you were talking shit about my back the entire time.
Yeah,
And
that
that's
sucks.
the kind of stuff that, so I really try not, just again, my own personal trauma with it. I try not to do
No, but
that to others.
that's valid. That's so valid, because in the past, I have been guilty of doing that, giving nothing but positive feedback, when behind the scenes, I'm like, man, this person's really falling short. And then we just get to the point where they're falling so short that I'm like, this isn't working anymore. And they're like, wait, what? And so
Yeah.
now I try to be very conscious of telling them where they can improve, or where they are falling short of the expectation of the role in the firm. It's not about me. It's about, what does the firm need?
Yeah.
What do our clients need? What does the team need? So I
Do you
think
think
I
that's
have
something though
taken
that
it from that perspective.
Do you think that's something though that a lot of women, especially women in leadership positions, struggle with? Is because, like, we're the nurturers, we're there to support, and so we don't want to give
Yeah,
overly negative feedback
for
because
sure.
we don't want to stifle anybody.
For sure. But, and I'm going to point at you with my textbook. But I do think that, like, part of being nurturing is helping that person grow. And this is something I've had to learn the hard way. Helping that person grow is telling them what's up in a real way. I still soften the hell out of it.
Do you think they're
I
still getting
don't,
the message?
I don't know. That's a good question. I think sometimes yes, but I think I've got to get pushed pretty far to be very, very direct. Like, hey, this is not working, and here's why. And then I can get real serious. And I think that's probably kind of jarring too, because I'm normally not like that.
Right.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, I'm learning as I'm talking right now, and as you're talking. Yeah, I need to, it's going to benefit everyone the more direct you can be.
Mm-hmm.
I
I
don't
mean, I
know.
think so. Of course, it's different with different people. Like, some people are really good with that direct. I think of one person on our team. I think we can think of the same person. She's direct. She's great with direct feedback. And then I
Yep.
think another person on our team that I absolutely love, if I gave her feedback that direct, she would think I hated her and was getting ready to fire
Yes.
her the next day, which of course is not true.
And
So,
that's how, yeah, I don't know if you're talking about me, but that's how I am. I'm like, wait, we aren't on the same page anymore. Like, you are against me. You really hate everything I'm doing. I'm failing. Yes, that's where I go. Man, I wish I was a direct feedback giver and receiver. I think that would make my life a lot easier. So this also begs the question: how do you figure out how your direct report, or whoever you're nurturing in business or in life, how do you figure out what kind of approach they need?
I mean, that's great. It's an interview question I always ask. How do you like to get feedback?
Do
And
they
of course it
know?
depends. Are people honest? Are they self-aware enough to
Right.
know? I think honestly it just takes time. And sometimes I've totally missed the mark. Like, no question. Like, I've had some people where I'm giving them direct feedback and they've completely fallen apart. And it's like, oh, well, now I've completely ruined our relationship because I did
Right.
not read that room very well. But I think as long as they're really self-aware, and then of course for me to just understand how I like to get back. I mean, for me, I have a very avoidant attachment. So I know that I can be really blunt. I'm competitive in a workspace for all sorts of psychological reasons, and then that's something that I have to deal with. Like, trying not to people please. I think that's helped. Like, one of the things that I've been hearing over and over again is you can't control how other people are feeling, and you have to get comfortable with people maybe being upset or hurt or angered by the things that you've said to them. And
So I have a hard time with that.
that's so hard. I've been working on that for 3 years. And I feel like I'm finally getting over that people pleasing hump. I first had to get over it with my parents, which that's still a work in progress, but now I can get over it with some people at
Well,
work.
actually, that's a good segue. Like, how does this candid conversation translate to personal life instead, not just business? Like, we can talk about it all day in the workplace, but like, how does it translate to your personal life? You're applying
That
it
was
there.
really tough because, like, I mean, obviously with my husband, like, whatever, I'll say the worst of the worst to him. That's fine.
Oh, that's
and
not
he to
nice.
me, like, that's just how it goes, you know. But
You're very
sometimes, I
direct.
mean, and
That's
with
how it
friends,
is.
it really depends. Like, I will have some friends where, I mean, you know, my friend Jennifer, like, I'll just tell her how it is. Like, this was not good. We got to do
And
something
she's
else.
going
Like,
to
we
dish
ask
it
each other
back at
marketing
you.
questions all the time,
Yeah.
and she needs that. She loves that. But then I have my best friend who, you know, we've been friends since we were 5, and I mean, obviously not as close anymore. We live so far away. And there are times when I'm like, oh gosh, I wish that we had that honesty and that candor. And we don't anymore. So sometimes it is just like a friendlier conversation. And then I struggle with authenticity. So I don't know. That's a tricky question.
That's interesting too. Honesty and authenticity. But I don't know. Those two words, I struggle with that with feedback and being candid because I feel like I'm also tailoring that feedback and candor to the person I'm talking to.
Right.
So it
Yeah. And
may
you
not
have
be
to.
what's authentic and honest to you. It may be what that person needs too. So how do you reconcile that?
It's hard. I don't think I do. I don't think I do. I
I
think
don't think
that
I do.
sometimes it's just really depends on the conversation.
Unless you just want to rip the band-aid off and you're just like, fuck it. I'm just going to be who I am and authentic and candid with everyone I talk to. And I'm not going to tailor it to you.
I mean, Jennifer does that and she comes off really bitchy sometimes, but it's something that she's totally, you know, fine
She's
with, and
fine.
something that I really love about her, because
Yeah.
how awesome must that be to just say whatever you want to say whenever you want to say it. But then there are
Maybe.
times where it's too harsh. Like if somebody gets a bad haircut, it's like, you
Oh,
know, like what do you say? Like, man,
depends
you
on
look
who it is.
terrible. Or yeah, it
Because
totally
my
depends on who
husband,
it
I'm like,
is.
no, turn it around and go back and get that
Right.
redone. And that's ratchet. Yeah, it depends. It depends. And like in the same vein, like with my friends, I feel like I'm pretty authentic with them no matter what. But no, sometimes it depends on their mental and emotional state too. That if I'm
Yeah.
soft, like they may not be ready to hear what I think about that situation.
Right.
So are you burning it down or are you just going to tread lightly and give them what they need?
Right. Well, and there's somebody that I mean, I don't know who it was, but somebody on TikTok was just like, are you asking me to vent? Are you asking me for advice? Are you asking me to fix this problem for you?
Yes.
And sometimes that needs to be stated. I mean, depending on what the situation is. Like, it's always one of those things like when it's a guy and he's done a bad thing to your friend and you know he did it, and you know he sucks. But you
Mm.
know that if you tell your friend that, certain friends, some friends would be like, thank
She's
you, I
not
needed
going
to
to
hear
hear
that.
it.
She's not going to hear it, right? And then you don't want her to get mad at you for telling her kind of what she needed to hear, but you know, maybe not be your place. So those are really tricky. I think with work, it's so much easier for me to be direct because it's like we're a team. So we're
Yeah.
here to coach each other. Like I'm here to make you better. You're here to make me better. You know, so I think that directness is perfectly fine. I'm more than accepting of it. Man, then we start treading the waters of dealing with kids and angry teachers and affairs and divorce. And then it's like,
God,
okay, I don't
that's a
know.
lot more gray.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. I mean, I think there is nuance in the workplace for sure, but in your personal life, that's nuanced as hell. Like,
Right.
okay. Um, what else you got to add on this topic of candid conversations?
I mean, I think you just have to have them. And for me, it's just practice. I think the more and more that I've had
Yeah.
them, the easier they come. And then creating that culture of then it's okay to say that you've made mistakes. It's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to come to your boss with something when you don't know what's going on, because we all know where we stand, and we know that at the end of the day, we're all here to make each other better.
Yes, I agree with all of that. And I do think it's something that can be learned. And it is something that takes practice. You're right. Because when I started my business, it was nothing but positivity. Now it's just like nothing but negativity. And I'm just beating it. I'm just kidding. Now it's much more balanced. And I think because I realize like it isn't helping someone if they aren't doing well, or maybe they're just doing their own thing, but they need to be doing our thing.
Right.
And then that needs redirection. So yes, in that regard, I can be candid. It is still hard. And I get really nervous and I get like sweaty palms. I don't care who I'm talking to. If I'm giving candid feedback, it's hard.
Yeah, it is super hard.
It's okay. You can get better. So if you're terrible at candid conversation, just call Melissa and she will tell you. She will tell you what's up. Yeah, I think that's all I have to say on this topic.
We love to hear how other people handle this. I know that it's difficult. Anybody who tells you that it's easy is wrong. It's always going to be a challenge, but I'm always really interested, especially how female creatives, obviously creatives are more sensitive to begin with.
Generally speaking.
And in leadership positions, like how do you do that? How do you have that conversation?
You have structure. And you plan and prepare, and examples.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thanks for joining us about this candid conversation. Yeah. Please do give us a shout if you have any thoughts or feedback. We'd love to hear from you. And if you like this episode, please follow and sign up for notifications so you hear it every time we drop a new episode. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you for listening. Make sure to check out our next podcast, coming live next week on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. In the meantime, you can find us and more wonderful stories like these on designdash.com. And make sure to follow us at Design Dasher on Instagram and TikTok. Till next time.